What's up, everybody? Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. All right, I just decided to make a quick little clip before I go to sleep because I think it's important to remind people that you should never let anybody confine you to who you used to be and make you act according to the way that they think you're supposed to act, or let them label you a particular thing because of things you've said in the past. Now, this is something I've always been really big on as a person who's had some very strong opinions on social media. Not only on social media, but just in general. I'm a person that has strong opinions. I'm a person that definitely does stand up for myself. And, some of the things, looking back on them, even I'm like, yeah, I don't necessarily sign off on that anymore, or that's not necessarily my thinking. But sometimes when people don't really have a point, but they're trying to argue with you or debate with you, they'll bring it back to something really old. They'll be like, oh yeah, well, I remember when you said this. And it's like, yeah, I said that a couple years ago, or yeah, that was a whole different situation or a whole different thing that happened. So it doesn't really have anything to do with what we're talking about now. If you had an actual point, what you would do is go at me about what we're actually discussing rather than bringing up old stuff that really had nothing to do with you. And a lot of cases at that time, you were a person who had my back on that and was saying that you thought I was right and you agreed with me. This is something that happens for me all the time because people will suddenly start acting like I'm a different person than I am, or I'm not being honest with them about like my character, or it's just. And I know it's human nature, but at the same time, it's not really fair to do that to people. And if anybody does it to you, you really should put a quick stop to it. Like, I put a quick stop to it all the time when people try to assign certain things to me. And it's like, yeah, I didn't say that like that. Like, what would be a good example of it? Every once in a while people will bring up the fact that I haven't gotten along with certain comics when I've gone on the road, and they'll try to make it seem like I was a bad person for calling that type of stuff out. But I stand behind every one of those. Do I stand behind the way that I presented it, or the way that I maybe called it out to the entire world? Maybe not so much in certain cases, but sometimes it really was a matter of people misrepresenting the way a situation worked or the way the situation went down because they were trying to save face, when really I have a right to expect that people that go on the road with me act in a professional manner. Like, there was one situation that I was on the road with a comedian, and he was drinking the entire trip before the shows. And it's cool if you want to have a drink or two, but when you're having several drinks and shots, and then we're supposed to drive after the show, or you decide to have a couple drinks with lunch, and we've got to drive several hours after lunch to get to the next gig, well, now you've just decided that I'm driving because I'm not going to let you drive me when you're buzzed or you've been drinking a bit. And I don't think there's anything wrong with me making that declaration. I don't have to risk my life because you're comfortable drinking and driving. I personally am a person that doesn't like a person having any drinks when they're going to be driving me. And then you add on top of that on that particular run, we were in a rental car. And a rental car that was in my name. So when I'm the one that's handling the rental car, and I'm the one that's dealing with the consequence if something happens, car accident or something like that, and then say a car accident happens, or just an accident, not necessarily with another car, but we were driving through icy conditions, and it's no exaggeration. I could play footage of what it was like. It was actual snow, sleet, hail, rain. It was February, we were going through Oregon, Washington, Wyoming, Utah. All of these places had different elements as far as the weather went. And so it's like, if anything goes wrong, like we slide off the road and you've been drinking at all, then I'm the one that's got to take on financial responsibility for this rental car, which, I'm already taking on financial responsibility for the rental car if we're completely sober and something happens, which is a very real possibility in situations like that. But instead of taking that as like maybe a wake-up call for them that they were being unprofessional, before the last show they had 6 shots. 6 shots, literally. I'm not exaggerating, I'm not adding numbers. 6 shots before we're supposed to drive 14 hours. Well, now you've just decided that I'm pretty much driving the whole 14 hours, because if you have 6 shots before the show and then you're drinking while I'm on stage, what are you, probably 8, 9 shots in by the time we leave, plus you're having beer as maintenance in between your shots. And I'm not going to trust you to just take like a 4-hour nap, which is about what I would have ended up driving, my first shift. I'll drive 4 hours and then you're supposed to be taking a nap. Then you wake up, you take over the driving, in theory. But if you've been drinking, you had 8 or 9 shots at that point, I don't trust that in 4 hours you will have metabolized that. And that's just science. I don't think that that's an unreasonable request to ask that somebody not put your life in danger or your financial well-being in danger. So then I was in a discussion, you could say an argument with somebody earlier today, and they made it seem like I was just petty for having that argument with the other comedian. I ended up leaving the other comedian in Utah because then they started trying to tell me how to drive and kind of borderline, like, not borderline, just browbeating me. And it was like, you're drunk, I'm sober. I don't want anybody browbeating me right now when I'm the one that's going to have to drive 14 hours now because you can't drink like an adult. And I know some people would be like, that is drinking like an adult. No, it's really not. Drinking like an adult is having a drink or two, actually being able to keep control of yourself and not get completely wasted when we're supposed to be working. And if you think about it in just a regular work context, like you take stand-up comedy out of it, what job would you be able to have 6 to 8 shots in before, you're supposed to drive? I mean, like, nobody would allow that. It's only because we're comedians that some people think that's acceptable. And sometimes when people think about comedians, they think about like Richard Pryor, Sam Kinison. But a lot of the landscape of comedy has really changed, and a lot of those comics that are the heavy drinkers and the big partiers really aren't in style anymore. Just as far as, it's not practical. You waste so much money when you're on the road when you're drinking like that. How much do shots cost even in a small town? So if you think about that times however many cities you're doing, and that one I think we did 12 cities or 14 maybe it was 14. But we're out for 2 weeks. So I mean, like, that's a lot of money you're wasting. But again, when it comes to that, I don't really care, because you waste your money however you want to waste it. It's only when it comes to my safety that I have a problem with it. And so I don't really understand why somebody would later on bring that up almost like it was a bad thing, or almost like it was just me being petty, because I don't think of all the things you can cite that I've done that would be a good one for that. There have also been other instances where people have done that to me and made it seem like I was the difficult one. But it's like, yeah, asking people to behave like professionals isn't at all difficult. When you're dealing with business and you're talking to somebody about maybe a money dispute or how a particular financial situation is going to happen, and you're trying to negotiate so that you can at least make it profitable for you to be on the road, then somebody brings that up, and suddenly now I have no respect for you in that particular argument, because it's like, yeah, you're bringing up something where I was in the right and acting like in some way I was in the wrong, which there's nothing wrong with expecting people to behave like professionals, which is my most important thing. I know a lot of like newer comics go on the road and they feel like, oh, this is my chance to party, this is my chance to really just cut loose and enjoy myself. And I am not that kind of comic, and I don't present myself as that kind of comic. I'm a person that goes on the road to make money to pay my bills. That's my main reason for being on the road. It's not about just having a good time. I mean, like, I can have a good time while I'm on the road. I can meet interesting people when I'm on the road. I can check out some sights every once in a while, or there's always beautiful, beautiful scenery almost everywhere I go. But as far as, wasting a lot of money or energy, there was a time where I used to party. I always kept it together when I would party on the road, but at the same time, well, no, there was one time I really didn't keep it together, but it didn't affect, our getting to the next gig or whatever, and it wasn't like I was supposed to drive. We had the whole night to hang out, but a lot of the stuff I've been doing lately hasn't allowed for a lot of recovery time. There's plenty of times where immediately after the show, we jump in the car. After breaking everything down, we jump in the car, and then we have to get right to the next spot. So, well, not right to the next spot, but we have to get to the next city so that we can get some decent rest and then be ready and well rested for the next spot. So, I guess I bring this up not only because it just happened tonight, but I have people do it to me a lot, and I just brought up a comedy instance, but I could bring up other instances where people have done that to me, and it's been like, yeah, that's really not a fair way to come at it, because in most of the things that have happened in that way, and like I said, it's not just when it comes to comedy, also personal relationships, it's really been me just trying to make sure that my life stays on track and not allowing somebody else's kind of careening spiral to bring me down with them. I don't feel like that's a good part of being a friend or a part of being a good friend. I don't feel like that's a part of being a good partner. I don't feel like that's a part of being a good family member, is to let somebody take you down with them. I feel like if you're going to be a healthy, independent person, sometimes you have to put down a boundary and just say, no, this is where I have to draw the line. And like I said, sometimes it'll be financial type stuff where people will try to make it seem like you're just being difficult, because really they're not necessarily wanting to do what it's going to do to make the situation mutually beneficial and not just beneficial to the one side. A lot of times as comics, we have people that are on the business side, like bookers and stuff like that, will give us, in some cases, deals that don't make sense, where you're like, okay, well, could you at least give me this much extra so that I can cover my travel, or so that I can cover, and then they'll say no. But not only will they say no, they'll make it seem like you're being a diva or you're doing something wrong, when it's like, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just trying to make it so that I don't go on the road and come back in the hole or just break even. Because who wants, if you were told that you were going to go to work for the day, but you were just going to break even, would you want to go to work? It's like, what? I'm going to go to work and just work to hang out with people, or to maybe have lunch, or I don't really know why you go to work if you're not going to make money. And in comedy, we're asked to do that all the time. And in the beginning, I understand that's a part of paying your dues. And I've never had a problem when I was first starting out with doing that. But it's been 16 years since the first time I ever picked up a mic when it comes to stand-up comedy, since I ever first did an open mic, anything. So at this point, I feel like I've paid the dues that come with when you're just trying to get on the road. Now I have grown-up bills and grown-up responsibilities and things that I have to take care of. And I sometimes miss when I was younger and I didn't really have the same amount of responsibilities. There was a long time in LA where I was paying $200 a month in rent. And that's unheard of even when I first started, to pay $200 a month in rent. But I just happened to luck out and ended up in a really good situation. And I, ended up blessed like that, you could say. So back then things were a lot easier. And it was also the time when I was paying those dues. And I still, had a job, but I was easily able to pay that $200, and then I could go on the road and sometimes lose money, and that was the way it was in the beginning. I would lose money or just break even. Anyway, I guess the point is more than what I said, like letting other people confine you to who you used to be, is also like more specifically, it's don't let people shame you into moving ahead or turning into the person that you're growing into. It's okay that you started off at a different place. It's okay to say, yeah, you're right. At a point I was here and now I'm here. And really, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to be over here. So I've got to figure out how to get from here to here. And you're either going to help me with that or you're not. And if you're also trying to get ahead in life and there's a way that I, as the talent or as your friend or as a mentor or as a comic that's been doing it longer, can help you get, say, like you're here and you're trying to get here, if I can help you make that jump, then I will most definitely do that. I will do my best to help out any way I can, but at the same time, it can't be to my own detriment. So that's what I have to say about that. Don't let anybody shame you out of your growth or continuing your path, no matter where you started out or how far back you were when you started. Thanks a lot for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment. This has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.